Additions is brought up. He refers to a makerere as a wasp, and that is a metaphor.
In the morning, we dealt with aspects in chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4 of the text Blossoms of the Savannah. We got to understand the thematic concerns, the styles, the character traits of various characters as they emerged in those particular chapters. Now, we are moving to chapter 5 of the text, where we find the two daughters of Olekaelo feeling like they have been trapped in a prison which they cannot break. After the homecoming ceremony, and with the words of Wale Musaenka ringing in their heads, they are desperate to leave Nasila, but they can't. They want to go back to Nakuru for their studies in Egerton University. Now, what they thought as mere talk about circumcision is now becoming a reality, is now becoming vivid in their mind, and they're fearful. What Tayo describes as a archaic tradition is now real. Meanwhile, Olekaelo declares that Mama Milanoi should prepare the daughters for their wifely duties, and that Pamwat, their brother, should teach them about the Ma culture. All these are in preparation for their circumcision. Although Mama Milanoi is opposed to the practice, she does not have a voice against her husband and also against the culture. The girls are thereafter introduced to Kaelo's enterprise in Nasila town, and Taiyo is excited about the uniqueness and the beauty of the business, but her sister's interests are elsewhere. And we see the contrast between Taiyo and Resian. The contrast is there. There's a demarcation between the two daughters of Olekaelo. The way they are presented by the author is totally different. While on one side, Taiyo is presented as a amiable girl, as easy to change, easily adaptable to. But on this other side, Resian is treated, comes out as a resistant girl, disinterested in the Ma culture, and that kind of a thing. So we find that in chapter 5.
Okay, let me start with the themes that we see in this chapter. One is informal education. Mwalimu was just mentioned in the summary that Olekaelo instructs Mama Milanoi to teach and prepare the daughters for life in Nasila, in the line of culture. And that is actually to be done informally. So it's education on tradition, on culture. Then we have the theme of traditions. This chapter covers Nasilian practices and their impact. One of them is female genital mutilation. We also have the theme of fear. The narrator tells us how the daughters of Olekaelo spent the night thinking of what was to become of them now that the eldest man in Nasila had beseeched them to follow and obey the traditions of Nasila to the latter. And that includes FGM, them being, Intoye Nemenga Lana, they had to feel afraid. And maybe in the interest of time, let me also talk about stylistic devices that I captured. Of course, we have dialogue, which is the most common stylistic device used. This style is used with various reasons. One, to break the monotony of narration, to enhance a message, or to bring out the character traits of the participants. We also have personification. On page 63, FGM is said to be rearing its ugly head. to show its monstrosity. It is dangerous. It is not good for the modern society. Then we have vivid description. The sitting room of Ole Kaelo is vividly described. The use of similes, metaphors. Page 64. We have 2-3 metaphors used.
I would like to also add that there's imagery that has been used. For instance, we are being told that while Tayo works herself to the bone, she lazes about like an overfed lizard in the hot afternoon sun. Here we are getting to see the image of an overfed lizard that is lying that is basking in the sun during the afternoon sun. So that an stylistic device that has also been used.
From just what my brother has said, is we find that Ole Kaelo, who was berating about the lazy nature of Resian, was continuing to add sorrow to her life.
Kaelo makes a pompous speech introducing Joseph Parmuat. Despite the warning, Tayo is still infatuated with Joseph and decides to make him a confidant. Resian is critical and dismissive of her father's pompous speech and generally how females are viewed by men. In a defiant mood, Resian expresses her mind on the subject of unfair men towards women. Surprisingly and daringly, she portrays the defiance to her aunt, Martha, and Resian. The listeners are deeply embarrassed. Auntie Botor says Resian has a bad spirit that can only be treated through circumcision. Tayo's questions who Oralin Koi is and is answered by Joseph by telling the legendary story. Iralin Kon is a legend who was a great fighter who saved the Ma community from being wiped out by an adversary while the Amorans had gone for a raid. Iralin Kon warriors abused women until one day women discovered how to deal with the problem. Their collective resolution ironically gave birth to Nkamuratani, who was handed over Olmurunya, hence the birth of FGM, and therefore, according to Joseph, only women can stop the barbaric FGM.
I want to talk about one of the emerging themes in this particular chapter, the position of women in the society. And this is seen when Yeyo Botor, that is the wife to Simiren, visits, and then she commends the girls for hard work in the kitchen. Mama Milanoi and Yeyo Botor agree that the two girls will make good wives when they get married. So in this society, we find that the woman's place is to get married. Tayo's excitement shows when she contributes to the conversation. However, Resian disagrees with the women observation that hard work should not just be about pleasing the men folk. And Resian's resistance answers a sharp reprimand from the older women. And that's why Yeyo Botor even suggests that Resian is suffering from an olkweni, which is a condition can only be removed by being cut, which is female genital mutilation. This cannot go unmentioned. The resistance of the status quo by Resian, she is really opposed to the traditional position of the woman in the society. She disagrees with these women that a woman is not just a creature to be married, and she is considered as irrational, and speaks about women who believe in the achievement of their dreams and not being held down by the cultural demands of the society. So we find that as a resistance to the status quo by Resian. Hence, we can say Resian is defiant.
In this chapter, a rift develops between the modernity and ancient customs. Resian goes on to confront her mother and auntie that the Nasilian society is harboring lazy men and encouraging laziness, in the sense that the generosity has gone overboard. The evil Nasilian culture gets back at her by suggesting through Yayo Botor that the solution to the old Kwenyi or the Kisirani or the evil spirit found in Resian is female genital mutilation, something that Resian is against without the knowledge of Yayo Botor, who does not know that her nieces are modern and oppose the FGM. Mama Milano is more inclined to have her children circumcised after withstanding all the pressure from the other women, whom she had earlier regarded them as busybodies.
I would like to point out the fact that in Nasila culture, there's an stylistic device that has been used, which is a flashback. When Joseph Pamwat tries to take them down memory lane, when Resian asks them about who Olarinkoi was, Joseph Pamwat describes the different types of Olarinkoi during different times of the Ma culture. And this theme is a flashback. And it also goes on to show that there was unity, where they were able to overthrow the Olarinkoi who was ruling them without a sense of law. Hence, we can be able to find a flashback as a stylistic device, as a dormant stylistic device in this chapter.
Just to mention, the use of oral tradition as a style has brought forward the story of the origin of FGM. This was started by women themselves at a time when there was a leader. He was called Ilarinkon, and he was misusing women. So to avoid dancing to the tune of their demands, and these were sexual, if I'm not wrong, women decided to have a cut so that they reduce their agility. And now it has turned out that it is being used against them. Some of them want it done.
Resian is in an optimistic mood that all will be well, especially about their university education. After Tayo leaves for the shop, Mama Miranoi broaches the subject of FGM. Even though Mama Miranoi supports FGM, Resian is categorical that it has been used by men as a tool of oppression to women. One, Edward Oloisudori, visits Kaelo's home. Resian is uncomfortable with him, for he is immoral. Mother scorns her for talking ill about him. Father returns, and due to Resian's nervousness, he calls her names. Kaelo clearly states that all members of Kaelo family must respect Oloisudori and that he should not be denied anything. Resian learns that her father did not give in to the request about joining university. Joseph reveals that Oloisudori is a shadowy figure, a jack of all trades. He is also a poacher, smuggler, robber, extortionist, and a hired assassin. He had survived numerous jail terms and was now incorrigible. Due to the revelation, the girls fear for their father. When Oloisudori leaves, the countenance of Kaelo and Mama Miranoi changes. They are absent-minded and aloof, even though Kaelo insists that everything is in control. Miranoi even burns rice without realizing it.
The thematic concerns that come out in this chapter include female genital mutilation. We are told that Mama Miranoi is meant to prepare Resian for marriage to Oloisudori, and part of it is FGM. We have authority stroke power. Resian is disturbed to see her father humble before Oloisudori, meaning that Oloisudori held her father in his powers. Then we have the theme of immorality. Oloisudori, in his lack of manners, brushes his fingers over the breasts of Resian. and that one leaves her feeling disgusted.
Thank you, Mr. Ofula. Briefly, I'll mention a style or two. There is the use of dialogue. There is a conversation between Resian and her mother about the FGM, and even reaffirms, her mother reaffirms the legend Parmuat told the girls about the FGM. So there are many other conversations between Oloisudori and Resian, Parmuat and Resian and Taiyo also. They have a discussion about Oloisudori, so that dialogue is key. It brings out the character traits of other characters. It promotes the plot of the text and that. There is the vivid description and the image of Oloisudori. The way he is described by Resian is a vivid description.
Adding to what the Maisha said, I would like to also point out that another stylistic device that has been used here is the use of a metaphor in page 104, where Oloisudori is being compared to a devil incarnate.
Oloisudori's cruel demand to marry Resian and organize the marriage of Taiyo renders Kaelo and Mamilanoi a sleepless night. Although Kaelo knew Oloisudori's past criminal record, he still falls for his trap to get more wealth. Oloisudori's initial plan was to extort money from Kaelo, but on arrival, he found Resian and immediately fell in love with Resian. He then went to ask Kaelo to give the hand of the daughter in marriage. Kaelo had earlier stated jokingly that nothing should be denied, and Oloisudori mocked him by his own words. Despite the hard times Kaelos are experiencing, the following morning, the members were able to manage a good breakfast, and all of them appeared to be joyous, as if nothing had happened the night before.
One of the observations that we get from this chapter is that Mama Milanoi and Kaelo's greed, it becomes apparent when they are willing to let their daughter, and that is Resian, to marry Oloisudori instead of losing their hard-earned wealth. So there is the theme of extortion. Oloisudori is an extortionist. He comes and wants and feels like he's indebted to, makes Kaelo feel heavily indebted to him, and therefore uses that opportunity to ask for Resian's hand in marriage. There is also the aspect of tradition, where Mama Milanoi reminisces about the days a man could not marry a daughter of his age, and punishment meted on all men when one of them tried to seduce a young girl. We get to understand that through a style of flashback through Mama Milanoi. There is the aspect of superstition on page 107. Kaelo takes us back to the cult called Il-Masonic. Il-Masonic, a fictional religious cult which was believed to accept human sacrifices from members for material gains. So we find those three, and maybe others, students will find others as the issues emerging in chapter 8.
We have so many styles. I'll just mention maybe the styles and the pages where they're appearing in the chapter. We have use of similes on page 107, page 108, page 109, page 113, page 119, page 121, maybe 150 or 115. Most of them are describing the situation in which Mama Milanoi and Kaelo are, owing to the demands that Oloisudori has made, marrying their daughter. We have the use of metaphors too. Check page 115, page 117, and page 118. Maybe not forgetting page 119. It's also good to note their significance as appropriate. Rhetorical questions have also been used, especially on page 108. They have been used to show the helplessness that the family is in, especially Mama Milanoi and her husband.
Joseph Pamwat begins a routine practice of coaching Tayo and Resian on traditional songs and dances, and the trio enjoy it immensely. Joseph Pamwat guards against any untoward behavior so as to conserve his integrity. The chapter then says a lot about the Mahakasha on different subjects. He explains different types of loves to the two girls, Elangatare and Patriarchy. Resian boldly asks Joseph to be her patriarchy, but he explains how it is impossible for that to happen due to Nasila's cultural norms. Tayo and Resian questions the rigidity of Nasila culture and traditions. They question some negative practices like FGM. Joseph clarifies that culture had dropped some negative practices like throwing the dead and the dying to the hyenas, abandoning the very old and ill in deserted homesteads. In a flashback, Tayo accounts for her love to Joseph. It began on the day their father organized a homecoming celebration, and since then, she has even visited Joseph in his house. Joseph also feels strong love to her, but tradition shields him from her. They think of falling in love and leaving for a far destination. Tayo is ready, but Joseph prefers to abide by Nasila Kasha.
In chapter 9, we find that there is the theme of tradition, where it was not a norm that a person from the same clan could intermarry. This was regarded as incest, and for the fine you were supposed to pay compensation in form of cattle. In addition, you could suffer public rebuke, and this could undergoing demanding for a cleansing ceremony.
In this culture, we find that the negative aspects of the Nasilian culture are highlighted. Resian had earlier found herself victim, but now Tayo is found between the crosshairs of the culture. She falls in love with Joseph Pamwat of the same clan but cannot marry her. Also, it's stated that that circumcising the girl at birth is painful, dehumanizing, and traumatizing. Another aspect, and that the Nasilian people used to throw the weak and the infantile to the hyenas instead of burying them.
To what they've said, we have the theme of love, which we can see there's a love that, according to the Nasilian culture, that love is illicit, but in this context, we will call it love. So there is a brewing affection between Tayo and Joseph Pamwat, and it has reached a point where it is about to explode until the girl now decides she cannot hide it anymore. But the boy has reservations because of the implications.
Okay, we have the use of personification. Check on page 129. The only thing that stood between them was archaic Nasila culture. Culture is abstract. It's an abstract idea and not a physical thing that can stand. We have sayings used, or rather proverbs. Why go fishing in shallow waters while the blue sea is teeming with fish? We have use of similes, flashback, and idioms as well. A cloud of apprehension hangs around the couple. Oloisudori does not turn up as he had promised earlier. After procrastinating for some time, they find it unbearable. Mother and father leave their home so as to consult their friends. The wife to Simiren and Olekaelo to Supeyo on the issue touching on Oloisudori's careless demand to marry one of their daughters. The two girls go to the shop to have their lunch prepared by the manager, Maiso. On their return journey, they are attacked by two rude young men. On observing the two men, they realize one of the accosters was responsible for the earlier ambush. The two young men are frightening for they are in possession of Nobkeris. They attempt to rape them, but luckily the girls are rescued by Olarinkoi. The girls cannot thank Olarinkoi enough. The two girls detest the two young men's behavior. They feel terribly shaken. Resian feels she should leave Nasila for university. The two incidents strengthen Taiyo's resolve as a combatant in war or in a war zone.
Just but to mention the themes that emerge from this chapter, chapter 10, there is a superstition where Resian is disturbed by a bird called Olmutut, which cooed in their homestead. According to her, it was a harbinger of bad things to come. There is insecurity. Resian feels that she's not safe in their home.